Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Dave Westcott, CEO of Evergreen Brands and TransBlue. And this morning I have with me Todd Chapman, who is Vice President of Operations at the TransBlue Franchise Company. How are
Good
you
morning.
today?
Doing awesome. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. I've got my scarf around my neck.
It's
Okay,
a good day for it.
I'm feeling warm, or maybe I'm just covering up some hickeys. I don't know.
Got a little crazy last night.
Because you got to have a good time. No, really, I'm just scarfing it.
Yeah.
No more babies in the Westcott household.
I was gonna say, coming
are
fresh off the new edition.
That's right. We are fresh off of number 3, which is a perfect topic for today, which is money management. Because when you become outnumbered, you really got to think about managing your money.
You do.
So this is the call today, money management. Here we go. This is probably one of my favorite topics of all time because, as a franchise company, as a team of people who work with new business owners and, people just starting out on their journey, one of the number one things that, they can struggle with out the gate is money management. And even seasoned veterans in business can suffer from money management. So it's one of those things where we really want to dive in, and this is an exciting call. This is an amazing call. This is really, this is where the rubber meets the road, because without proper money management, there is no business. And so we're going to start with just a share of one of the things that we see and one of the things that can happen as to a business that's not managing money and not managing sales. Because I think that in this business, in any business, like the heart of the organization is the sales function, right? So the sales function has to constantly be moving and pumping, and we've got to be getting blood flowing to the rest of that business. And so money management is key. So let's just roll out an example. We'll just share this with you. This is about no one in particular. This is just being made up. But in our particular field, we love to subcontract the work. So we are an outsource driven business. We do the majority of our work is with the utilization of subcontractor labor. So let's just run a scenario, money management. We start a business, and let's say, what would you say, Todd? A good amount to somebody might start their business is $50,000 in the bank. Would that seem fair?
Yeah, I think that's a good start. There's a lot of other factors that come into play. On their costs and what they have and staffing and all that. But overall, 50 is a good starting point for sure.
50 is a good starting point. And Todd's been in the franchising industry for 13 years.
13 years now. Yep. Going on 14.
13 years, going on 14. We'll see if he makes it to 15. That's the big number.
That's the mark.
That's the mark, right? So he's got a little bit to go. But so you start out with some money in the bank, and you're getting your wheels turning, and immediately that money starts to erode, right? Immediately you've got rent, call it $3,000 a month. If you're maybe a new organization, you've got insurance. Maybe that's $1,000 a month. Maybe that's $5,000 a month, depending on the industry and the type of work that you've got. Then you've got, your salary. Are you paying yourself out the gate? Are you not? Then you've got, your staff, right? And then you've got the little things like the internet, the lights, the trucks, whatever it might be. You've got all these little expenses that are going to come out, and they're going to start to just chew away at that. And so, what we see is, let's just say that, you collect your down payment. Let's just say that you have $50,000 in the bank and you're getting going, and it takes a couple of weeks, and you sell your first job, and now maybe you've spent $10,000, $15,000, and you're down to $35,000, and you're watching your cash flow. And sometimes what we see business owners do is we see them say, well, I'm going to put this $50,000 in, and if it doesn't pan out, then, well, I'm out. And in my opinion, when that happens, you've already lost, right? You've got to be all in. You've got to be ready to go. So let's just say you do that. Now let's say that you're into this and you close a job for $20,000, and let's say that you get a $10,000 down payment. Now, what happens with that money? Where are you putting that money? And I think that that is one of the biggest challenges that you can see in business, because immediately that down payment goes into the business's operational fund. And what does that money start doing? That money starts making payroll. That money starts paying for the truck payments. That money starts paying to keep the lights on, and rightfully so, right? Like, I mean, you're in the business to make money, and you're there to get moving. But you also have a subcontractor payment, or if you don't subcontract, then you have a much higher labor force. So you can almost swap the two, right? You can almost swap your subcontractor labor for your performance and enhancement labor, right? It's so you can look at it both ways. Whatever you look at, you're going to have a large expense, whether it's from labor in the field or whether it's from a subcontractor labor. That's going to take the majority of your funds. And so what we want to do is we want to say, like, we've got to start to separate those funds out. Now, let's just say that in a GC world or a GC business, like maybe a GC, maybe they're making 20%. So if a GC is making 20% and they collect a $10,000 down payment, how much of that money belongs to the GC?
20%.
$8,000, right? Or $2,000, right?
Yep.
Is $2,000 going to make payroll?
Most likely not. In most of the businesses we see, obviously.
Right. Is $2,000 going to pay the rent?
Not at $3,000.
Not at $3,000, right? So what we see is an immediate erode. So what we're doing is we're putting money into the bank, but we're not properly allocating those funds to ensure that our base business expenses are covered, right? And so what we need to do, and what we talk about in money management, is really the allocation of those funds and really starting to break out what that looks like. And let's just say that if you're in a heavily focused GC outsourcing type model. GC stands for general contractor. If you're a general contractor type model, and let's say you're making 20% on the job, then how much of that goes to payroll? Do you know your payroll number? And so these are some of the things that we talk about. Now, if I'm in this situation and I, take my, $10,000 down payment, and then I'm like, yes, we got to win, we got to sell, awesome. And I immediately go and pay rent. And now I've got $7,000 left. And then I go and and then I make payroll. And let's say payroll was $3,000. And now I've got $4,000 left. And then I've got to make a down payment to a subcontractor. And I'm like, well, I'm a little bit short. So I'm selling another job, and I get another job, and I get another down payment. And then I'm doing the same thing. And I take that down payment and I put that money towards the first job. And then I come back and I'm saying, I'm not making any money. Now, Todd, who has, been in this business for a long time and seen many, many, many brands from, his time at OxyFresh, where he started a cleaning type company, to US Lawns, which is landscaping, commercial landscaping maintenance, to TransBlue, which is, residential and commercial construction. So, in those models, a myriad of different things he's seen over the years. If I'm that franchisee, or maybe not even a franchisee, maybe just a business owner, if I'm that business owner on the other end of the line and I'm saying, man, I'm really struggling here. I'm robbing Peter to pay Paul. I'm behind on my payments to my subcontractors or my payroll. What is your advice to me? How are you coaching me through this? What are the tips and the tricks that you've learned over the years?
Yeah, good question. And I think you're right. I think, even before they dive into again, all those details when it comes to, hey, where's the allocation? Where are we with our sales is backing up to the plan too, right? I mean, understanding when they come into the year or they're building a business is, what's the plan on the budget, right? And looking at, we focus on revenue. We need to drive revenue because sales are very important. But also, hey, what's our profitability look like? Like, what's the goal, right? And you talk about that. We talk about that all the time. Is, what's the big target we're trying to hit? Now, at this moment, obviously, hey, we're starting to see that. Hey, we're coming into the business. I would say one is the expectation, knowing that, hey, early on as you grow, there's that growing phase. I think the business is in phases as well, where early on you're going to have to know that you're going to see some money go out, right? In any of the businesses, right? I mean, you have to see, and I think it's a mental game sometimes for the entrepreneurs and for the business owners, where it's tough to see money going out and not seeing everything come right in right away. And I think it's part of that expectation of, in this world, we see kind of that instant gratification of things happening. But as you know, as you build a business, you got to continue to push and build that plan, and just expect that eventually there's going to be that turning point. And knowing your numbers. The first thing I would ask or coach is, do we know the numbers? Have we been disciplined and keeping track of knowing and staying on top of the finances, but even behind the finances, the numbers that drive to the finances, right? The sales numbers. Do we know where we stand with our sales? So we dive into that number, and are we staying on top of the cash flow, especially in the first year or two of business? I think it's setting those habits, it's setting those disciplines that, hey, every day live in there, right? I mean, for the first couple of years as we coach our franchisees, is live in that cash flow, live in your finances, live in your numbers, hold your team accountable, that we're driving towards that plan and towards those targets. So that's the first thing we go is, hey, where are we in the overall plan? Because it's also easy to get kind of diving into that day. Business can be emotional at times. And so we may make these emotional decisions and reactions, whether that be, hey, I need to make a staffing change, or I need to cut back on my marketing. You mentioned marketing earlier. So one tendency is, as things get a little tight right away, is we want to pull back on the marketing. But, again, once you do that, it's kind of like the lifeblood and that of the body of the business. And so, we don't want to cut back on that piece, right, on the sales engine. So it's really making the decisions by the numbers, keeping track of, hey, where are we with our targets, and then managing that plan every day, And so if we, one is know the fact, making sure we're really looking at the numbers and the facts, and then we can make those decisions that affect the profit, affect the business and our financials. But I think a lot of it is that going back to the expectation coming in, and then your planning.
So when we talk about the sales numbers, I'm looking at it. I'm the guy on the other end of the line. I'm robbing Peter to pay Paul, and I'm sitting there, and you're saying the numbers. So let's give these secrets away. Let's help these folks on the call out. Let's say, so if we're looking at sales numbers, the couple of things that I got was, we got to know our sales numbers. We got to know our cash flow, and then, let's discuss marketing and so forth. So I'm sitting here and I'm saying, okay, I get it. You're telling me to be patient, right? That's one of the things I'm hearing you say. I'm hearing say, hey, be patient. You're going to have some outflow. Okay, I get that. What are the sales numbers that we're going to dive into? What do you want to see from me if I'm on the other end of that call?
One is, again, how many estimates are we running, right? I mean, what does the lead flow look like?
Okay.
One.
And why do we want to know that?
Because, again, we need to know our closing rate, right? So we need to know, hey, when we start off with the planning at the beginning of the year, whether that's, again, the budget, looking at the sales plan, to hit the targets and the overall, that's why it goes back to the plan. Where are we? Now we can adjust, and that's okay, right? We can sit down and adjust as we go. We know every plan is great until the plan needs to be changed, right? Because, that constant is the change that's going to happen in business. But I think first is measuring to that, what's our budget to actuals look like? And then we can adjust the plan accordingly. But it starts with the sales. So where's the profit line? Where's the revenue we want to target at the beginning of the year? Now we reverse engineer that, obviously, of, hey, how many jobs do we need? Now we have basic fundamentals of average job sizes, right, in our business, and every business has a transaction history there of what that average job size would be, and then from there the math just works out, right? Okay, here's our average close rate. What's the next one, right? What's our close rate look like? And then here's how many leads that we need to generate the sales, right? So how many leads based on the average job size that we see. Now, as you're starting a business, you can get some generalities and then tighten those in as you get more historical data. So as you get more in business, month by month, year by year, you can start tightening in these average job sizes, and then knowing your closing rate based on the individual salespeople or your business. And then you can look at, okay, where are we? And then closing rate, again, in this situation, it's saying, hey, what's your close rate right now for your salesperson in our business, right? How many jobs are we closing? And then looking at that average job size so we can really see where we are. And then do we need to adjust that marketing? So the next is, okay, here's the lead flow. If something's not performing on these lead sources, whether that's a direct buy lead source, right? Like Angie or Home Advisor, Yelp. There's a lot of sources out there, for example, or even if we're doing a commercial approach, how many leads are actually closing, right? What is generating are the best opportunities for us, both in volume, but then looking at, okay, what's our return that we're putting into these marketing sources, so do we know that? Do we know what we're getting out of each of these so we can make that marketing change if we need to, right? Maybe we don't, again, but that's where we look at the facts when it comes to the sales numbers or the marketing, so we can make sure we're basing more on logic, because especially early on, again, the emotion can take over, and if we got to make sure we're looking at those numbers and making sure that it's telling the right story.
Well, that was awesome. There's a lot to unpack there. There's a lot to do there. So one of the things I think just to focus on is, one of the things that you said was sales plan. So if I'm taking notes, if I'm writing, if I'm taking it down, I want to have a sales plan. That's one of the things I want to have on my list. And then if I want to have a sales plan, a monetary goal, maybe that monetary goal that I'm putting down is $1 million. Right. And then I'm going to look at the historical data in my industry. And I'm going to say, just interestingly enough, we'll just use some common ground here. We'll just talk about some common ground. So in the sign industry, in talking to, some folks that I work with and know, the average job is like $1,700 for like a sign, right? For a sign installation type business. And, I know some guys in the HVAC business, and the average cost to install a new heat pump, furnace, heater, so on and so forth, is about $10,000, right? And the average construction job that we might do is, what would you say the average job that a franchisee might do today? Do you know that number?
Yeah, 25,000, I think, is a good mark that we see.
So the average guy is doing about $25,000 on a construction job. So when we start to know those jobs, so it doesn't matter if we're in signage, or it doesn't matter if we are in HVAC, or it doesn't matter if we're in general construction, we now understand and know, right, what the average job size is. And so if we have $1 million, and let's just say we're in the HVAC industry and it's $10,000 a job and we want to do $1 million, then we automatically know that we need to get how many jobs closed. Well, we picked that one because it was simple math. So we've got $1 million as the goal on the sales plan, which means that the average job is $10,000, which means we need to sell 100 jobs. And so we would start to look at that, and then we would say, what is our profit on that job? And so out of that job, if we based our profit to be 20%, right? If we said that's what we're going to make on this, that's what we're going in at, if that's the number that we used, we would know that our profit would be $200,000. Now, that's not a ton of cash, but for this sake, for this example, that's what we're working with, right? So we know, okay, that's our goal, is to make $200,000. And so now that doesn't leave a lot of room for staff. That doesn't leave a lot of room for payroll. That doesn't leave a lot of room for trucks. That doesn't leave a lot of room for that, does it?
Nope. Yeah, it's very
tight
at that point.
So it's very tight. So what do we need to do? We need to increase margin, right? Which means we need to sell higher, or we need to subcontract better, or we need to manage labor at a better degree. It's interesting because I see on Facebook and LinkedIn all the time, you've got these guys that say, hey, take your $200,000 ahead HVAC business to a $500,000 ahead HVAC business. How are they doing that?
Yeah, right? creating value, and multiple ways, but like you said, higher price point, right? Creating higher average job size, right? Increasing that, or managing. And that's where the numbers, right? You dive in and you look at, okay, little things here and there, right, that add up. But a lot of it is, are you creating the value?
Are you creating the value? So let's just go with this deal that we've laid our numbers out. We've got to hit 100 jobs. Now, what would you say in just research? The National Association of Sales, last time I looked at it a few years ago, said that the average salesperson, closed at about 30%. So let's just take that and just do some round math. And that basically means we're going to close 1 out of every 3 jobs, right? Okay, so we've agreed that we're going to close 1 out of every 3 jobs. Now we start to understand that on our sales plan. So now we need to be able to put in place, 300 estimates? So we need to do 300 estimates, right?
Yep.
Now, we also know that in some markets, the close rate is less and the close rate is more, right? We've seen as low as 20%. We've seen as high as 45%.
Yep. And it's also the individual, right? We know that,
right.
And that right person in that right seat of closing.
The man in the box.
Man in the box. Just like
that's right. Now, we also know that we're going to have some slippage there, right?
That's right.
And so what slippage is somebody called for an estimate. You didn't answer the phone right away. They sent a message through Yelp. Maybe they sent a message through Home Advisor, Angie List. I don't know. They sent you a message. And you recalled them and you emailed them and you responded and they didn't get back to you. And so what we budget that for is about 20%. So we're going to see about 20% lead slippage. So in reality, we need 375 leads. 375 leads we know is going to get us 100 closed jobs. So that's why we have the sales plan that Todd is talking about. Now, Todd can make adjustments to that sales plan. For example, if he's looking at the close rate and the close rate goes down, what does he need to do? What do you need to do if the close rate goes down?
Well, one is, you can look at, and is it training? Is it, again, but mainly we're going to need higher volume, right? You're going to need to look at, hey, we're going to need to produce more leads to get to the jobs we need.
We're going to produce more leads. And so what we found is that the industry average for a cost for a lead is about $150. So that's about what we see in the industry. And so we know that if we take our 375 leads times our $150, we know that right out the bat, we're going to spend $56,250 on leads. Now, we looked at our budget and we said, we're making $1 million and we're going to subcontract out at 80% because we're going to make 20%. Now, 56,000 of that just went to marketing and advertising. So we start to understand how important marketing and advertising is. And that's roughly 5.5% of your overall budget is spent on marketing. And that doesn't include brochures. That doesn't include truck branding. That doesn't include, all of those little giveaways or trade shows or little things that you might do. So a typical average that we see for marketing is is around that 10% range. That's typically what we see for that budget. So we're looking at it and now we're saying, gosh, the money is going away really fast. Is it even worth being in business? And so these are the things that we talk about. This is why we plan, because if we go into this business and we say, hey, listen, our margin is going to be 20%. And that's what we think is fair. That's how we want to do it. Then we might have a business that is maybe not feasible. Maybe that business needs to be 25%. Maybe it needs to be 30%. Maybe it needs to be 35%. I don't know what that number is for any particular business, but the plan needs to be laid out in such a fashion that you can be profitable. And like Todd said, it all starts with the plan. And so if Todd's coaching me on the other end, what I hear him saying is, you need more lead flow. You need more lead flow. Spend more money.
Not always the case, but yeah.
I might get frustrated, right? So like we might have a heated conversation over that. So what is another way that we see performance increase within that sales industry?
Yeah, is the individual salesperson, right? I'm looking at the man in the box, like we talked about. That'd be the next, hey, looking at the data, looking at where we are, looking at the historical averages we see in the industry. Is that person, right, that is in the box, or that salesperson, the right fit, right? Are they the right person in that seat? As you can see, the performance, right? We've seen that, in many different examples of that, and people see that in different industries, different brands, where a change in that seat, and this goes to the expectation being set, and what's our goal? Do they know the goals? Are they driving to those? And then again, staying on top of the financial numbers, but are we looking at those KPIs on a week-to-week basis with our salesperson? Do we have a sales meeting that is consistent, where we're looking at all these numbers that are driving, right? These estimates, these closes, and assuming we've made the expectation, is the next thing is it a retraining possibility? Do I need to go and evaluate my salesperson? Do I need to go out, and in our industry, we do a lot of job walks, right? And site walks. Do I need to go out with that person and evaluate, every that facet of the sale, and really look at, okay, how is it a retraining? And if we feel like we need to make a change, we make a change there with that individual. And we've seen that before, where the owner makes a change, and you see that those closing rates go up. You see that average job size go up. When they make that change. So that'd be the next area to evaluate.
So we're evaluating the man in the box, and I think that one of the number one things, if you're taking notes, if you're looking at what you're doing, I think one of the number one things that you can do to increase your sales activity is the delivery of the bid to the customer. What does that time look like? Now, just a couple of stats to help you through this. I think we pulled this from Harvard Business Review. I can't remember, but I believe that's where it's from. Is that 70% of customers who buy from a direct buy source, so like an Angie's List or a Home Advisor or a Yelp, any kind of site where they're searching you out, not where you're cold calling them, that customer is typically buying within 24 hours of the first bid. And so you think about that, if 70% of those customers are buying within 24 hours and you deliver your bid outside of 24 hours, you have now reduced your buying power by 70%. And so now if you're still closing at a 30% close ratio, it actually dropped to 10, because now you're left in that remaining 30% and you've only got a 1 out of 3 chance of winning that bid. So you drastically reduce your close rate. So when we say that average salesperson is closing at 30, but we've seen 20, 18, 18% close rates, a lot of that has to do with the time in which you deliver to the customer, right? So if there's a tip that you can do, if there's a benchmark that you can hit, it's delivering the bid as fast as humanly possible to the customer.
Yeah, and that's a great point. I think going back to the world of what we live in these days, right? With Amazon, where you can in the morning, hey, I need batteries, or I need to replace this, right? At the house, you can place an order and it's there that afternoon potentially, right? And I think obviously the statistic there with Harvard Business Review is there, but it's we're used to just after speed, and it continues to get quicker and quicker, with each passing day of what our expectation as a consumer, and especially if you're looking at something that's where a lot of our customers may come from on the residential side, when they're filling out a lead form, right, is that responsive nature that they're expecting, and are we meeting that? And delivering an incredible customer experience starts with obviously our responsiveness and getting back to them.
Yeah, it's absolutely huge. Another key thing is reviews online. So, any place like Google or Yelp or Angie's List or wherever, like none of these places want to refer or recommend a company that has low stars, right? So if you have a low star rating, they're not going to promote your business. The reason they're not going to promote your business is because it gives them a bad reputation. If I go to Google and I choose a 2-star company and that company sucks, I'm not going to go back to Google to find my supplier, right? I'm going to go to Yelp, or I'm going to go to Angie's List, or I'm going to go Home Advisor. So your reviews are hugely important. Once you hit 200 reviews online that are above 4 stars, the statistic says that you will close at a 44% close rate statistically. And so what does that do to your numbers? That actually drives more profit to your business. It actually reduces your spend on marketing and advertising, puts more money in your pocket, and allows you to close at a higher rate. And on top of that, you can charge a third more, in some cases up to 30% more for the work that you're providing by providing an excellent customer experience. Now, I love
I think it's like 93% of people read online reviews now before making the actual purchase, right?
Yeah,
and it's like in the mid 80s, I believe, like 84, 85% weigh online reviews the same as they would a word of mouth, from a recommendation of a friend or a family, right? So the value, that's a great point there. Exactly right.
Reviews change your business.
Yep.
Reviews change your business. And so if you're looking at those two things, it's super important. Now we've got into money management, and we're going to bring this in for a landing. And the part of what we're talking about here is there is no money management without a strong sales engine. Okay. But the other thing that becomes really, really important is you got to know your numbers. Like Todd said, you got to have that sales plan. And when it comes to money management, this is where I'm going to leave it, is that early on in that business, if you have, $1 million and you know that 80% of that is going to go to a subcontractor, then 80% of that should go right into a subcontractor payment account, right? We should hold that money on the side because really it doesn't belong to us. And then we need to manage our marketing, our 5%. We need to manage our payroll, 10%. We need to manage our bills, 3-4%, whatever those costs are to run the business. We need to manage those within the 20%. And then we need to separate those into buckets. And visually and early on, maybe that's in an Excel spreadsheet where you have, subcontractors, payroll, bills, whatever you want to call it, and that would include your marketing, your expenses, so on and so forth, and then your profit. So you've got those 4 buckets, and you're breaking that money out, and you're following that. And even for some guys, they need to break out the different bank accounts, right? Like they need to put the money in the account so that they don't spend it, so that they can pay the vendor. And that's what money management takes, is allocating the money to the proper places. Because if you spend it, it's gone. And then you're in this conversation like we started where I'm like, Todd, I just spent all my subcontractor down payment money to make payroll.
Right. And at that point, you're exploring other options, right? Because I need to bring in more cash. I need to bring in, leverage lines of credit, or, right? I mean, but it goes back to your point of what's the habits and a great word of discipline that we have created for financial management, right? In the money management side. And that search starts early on for those starting off in the business, right? What are the daily habits, the weekly habits, month habits that I'm creating, and the consistency of which I'm keeping track of that, right? Tracking that progress. So I can think ahead. I can foresee, business decisions and run it more profitable.
Yeah. And, we're not just as a caveat for the call, we're not recommending a 20% margin. I'm not saying that's the margin that you should be shooting for or working for. You need to figure that out for your own business. That's just an example for the call. And that is a typical markup in general contractor construction. You will see that as a typical money management markup in the general contractor world. And hopefully it's not going less than that, because that's you're not making money when you're doing that, right? You're not living your best life when you're doing that. So what we really want to focus on and what we really want to drive to is, how much money does it take? How much money does it take to give me the life that I want? Because in business, when you step out on this entrepreneurial journey, when you're looking for that $1 million idea, because we just showed you $1 million HVAC business that's not making any money. So just because it has $1 million price tag behind it does not mean that it's profitable, does not mean that it's good for you, does not mean that it's good for your business. What it comes down to is managing. One, you got to know, what is my profit? What am I looking at? What am I taking home? What am I in this for? because that example that we showed you, that doesn't give us quality of life. Right? So
That's right.
We don't know that unless we plan for it. But you see, this whole pitfall, this whole thing, this plays out two ways. This plays out at the beginning of the business when you say, this is my business plan. This is how I'm going to attack it. Or this plays out 9 months down the road when you're out of money, in trouble, and owe a bunch of people money. And so it's so much easier to plan in advance than it is to plan when you're in trouble.
That's right.
And so that's the coaching that you give potential franchisees or people that are looking to go into business or people that are looking to take that entrepreneurial step, people that want to create that $1 million business. You're coaching them on this all day long.
And I think, yeah, and it's also, you mentioned that the part of the plan is, what do you want out of the business? We're not going to, not to sidetrack it of like, hey, what is your why? And, going into business, because there's a motivation. Yeah, businesses are intended to profit, right? And as the small business owner and entrepreneur who owns the business, and maybe 100%, if there's partnerships, okay, whatever that breakdown is, that comes into play. But you get to keep the profit, right, after taxes, after all your expenses, which increases your worth, of your business. Can lead a greater sale down the road, and then your net worth and what you're in it for, right? That could be giving back, which I know we're very passionate about here. Obviously, Trans Blue. But you can't give back to the level you want or whatever vision you lay out. That's part of that planning too, right? And that's why we got to start with that profit, because there's how many companies we know of that you hear of that are extremely high revenues, focusing on the profit as well. And so, really starting back with those numbers, and then once you have the plan laid out, are we managing and tracking that, and then we can adjust it accordingly, based on what is happening in the business at any given point.
Awesome stuff, Todd. That was a fantastic call. Here's the last tip, the last takeaway for the day. The goal should be look at your net profit, keep it continually in front of you, look at it every single week. And the goal should be to keep that net profit above 10%. Right? That's your benchmark. That's your KPI. Throw that, put a push pin in the wall, put a push pin in the notepad. Just a shout out to Nick Schneider on the call. He says, good profit first reference here with a nice smiley face. Nick, thanks for joining in on the call. Thanks for the comment. Absolutely right. Good profit first. Yep, we got to make profit, man. So awesome. I'm so glad you're on the call. Thanks for taking the time to join in. Listen, if you liked this, give it a share, give it a like, right? Get it out there. All our goal here is to, help business owners make money, walk down that entrepreneurial journey, and be as profitable as possible. That's what this is all about. I'm Dave Westcott, CEO of Evergreen Brands. Like me on Facebook, like me on LinkedIn. I'm just now on Instagram. So, hit me on Instagram too if you want. Todd Chapman, follow on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. I don't know where he's all at socially, but he's there too. Todd, it was awesome having you on the call this morning. As a pleasure. As always, it's a pleasure having you on the call. Your insights are terrific. Any last words before we cut this call?
No, the main thing I would say is, stick to your plan. Remember the reason you go in business for it, and then drive it and just live in it every single day. So go be awesome.
Live in it. Live in that money, baby. Get it done. Hey, thanks.
Right.
We'll be back next week. Same time, same channel. Have an awesome afternoon and manage that money.